Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Plants and Politics. I believe the January 6th committee is leaking out little bits of information ahead of this week's televised hearings because there was a document that was shared on Twitter this morning. I don't know if it's been shared before. If it has been, I have never seen it, but it's as close as you can get to a smoking gun. I mean, with the exception of having Trump on video directing the National Guard to stand down while his terrorists were attacking the Capitol, this is probably it. So the document is typed on Secretary of Defense letterhead, and it's dated January 4th. So this was not longstanding policy. This was specifically written for January 6th. The document is addressed as a, quote, memorandum for Secretary of the Army. And the subject reads, quote, employment guidance for the District of Columbia National Guard. Then it goes on to state, quote, this memorandum responds to your January 4, 2021 memorandum regarding the District of Columbia request for District of Columbia National Guard, DCNG for short, which they put in parentheses, support in response to planned demonstrations from January 5 through 6, 2021. You are authorized to approve the requested support subject to my guidance below and subject to consultation with the Attorney General as required by Executive Order 11485. Then it states, and this is the most crucial part, quote, without my subsequent personal authorization, the DCNG is not authorized the following. And then the document lists a whole host of bullet points, which are, quote, to be issued weapons, ammunition, bayonets, batons, or ballistic protection equipment, such as helmets and body armor, to interact physically with protesters except when necessary in self-defense or defense of others, consistent with the DCNG rules for the use of force, to employ any riot control agents, to share equipment with law enforcement agencies, to use intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR for short, also in parentheses, assets, or to conduct ISR or incident awareness or assessment activities, to employ helicopters or any other air assets, to conduct searches, seizures, arrests, or other similar law enforcement activity, to seek support from any non-DCNG National Guard units. So the letter ends with, quote, at all times, the DCNG will remain under the operational and administrative command and control of the commanding general of the DCNG, who reports to the Secretary of Defense, that's him, through the Secretary of the Army. You may employ the DCNG Quick Reaction Force only as a last resort and in response to a request from an appropriate civil authority. And then it goes on to say what they have to wear and that Miller has to be notified immediately. So 2 days before the Capitol attack, Miller gives this directive in writing that unless he personally authorizes it, the National Guard cannot have weapons or even protective equipment. And anything they did have, they can't share it with other law enforcement agencies. And they couldn't physically interact with anybody, with any of the protesters, or use chemical agents to stop them. And they couldn't arrest anyone. They couldn't even search anyone without his approval, his prior approval. So you're walking down the street, you're a National Guardsman, you see someone that you think maybe has a bomb or a weapon, you're not allowed to search that person until you get approval from this guy, from Miller. So he completely tied their hands behind their backs. And then on the day of the attack, as we all know, he failed to deploy the National Guard for 3 hours after. It was after he knew that the Capitol grounds had been breached. And that was something that he was forced to admit when he was testifying before Congress. First, he lied. First, he said it was 90 minutes, as if that was so much better. But then he was forced, after being questioned, to admit, oh, yeah, it wasn't around until 4:30. And oh, yeah, they breached the Capitol grounds around 1:30 in the afternoon. For anybody out there, anybody hate watching who continues to beat this bullshit drum because you just like to parrot everything you see on faux quote unquote news channel. No, this was not because of Nancy Pelosi. And no, I'm not a Nancy Pelosi fan, but she did not hold up the response. The requests were made in advance for the National Guard and they were approved, but then they had their hands tied behind their back by this guy, by Trump's acting Secretary of Defense. And he's trying to say, oh, no, I was just holding off because I didn't want a repeat of what happened during the George Floyd protests. And I just didn't want Donald Trump to get out of control. I didn't want him using the military against people, against protesters. So what's up? I mean, on the day of, did he not see that Donald Trump wasn't lifting a finger? He was still worried about that. For hours, he sat there and watched people, as we all did, streaming into the building after they used riot shields and pieces of wood and other objects to break windows, sometimes their own fists and their own feet, and then open the doors for the mob and open them up for the rest of these terrorists and insurrectionists to spill in, looking for lawmakers, yelling out their names, threatening to hang the vice president. He watched that, I'm assuming, as we all did, for 3 hours. And he knew, based on this written directive with his name at the bottom of it, that every decision was in his lap, in his hands, to literally send in the troops. And he did nothing for 3 hours. I really hope the DOJ is just playing us all. I really hope that grand jury is looking at stuff like this and that people are going to be arrested and that there is going to be a price to be paid. Because if not, the next time, and there will be a next time, is going to be monumentally worse. It's going to be a horrific attack if a message is not sent. And the people who plan this are not put in prison. Anyway, guys, I'll let you know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.